Hello and welcome to this new episode of Bootstrapping Your Dreams Show. I'm your host Manoj Agarwal, and today we'll be talking with Christopher Gannatti. So, Christopher is the global head of research at WisdomTree, which is a global financial innovator company offering a well-diversified suite of exchange-traded products. So, just to give you a little bit background, WisdomTree has about 200 employees across the world, and they have about $110 billion under management. So Christopher began at WisdomTree as a research analyst in 2010, and in 2014 he was promoted to associate director of research, where he was responsible to lead different groups of analysts and strategists within the broader research team at WisdomTree. And in 2018, Christopher was promoted to head of research Europe, where he was based out of WisdomTree's London office and was responsible for the full WisdomTree research effort within the European market, as well as supporting the UCITs platform globally. In 2021, Christopher was promoted to global head of research, now responsible for numerous communications on investment strategy globally, particularly in the thematic equity space. Christopher came to WisdomTree from Lord Abbett, where he worked for 4.5 years as a regional consultant. He received his MBA in quantitative finance, accounting, and economics from NYU's Stern School of Business in 2010, and he receives his bachelor degree from Colgate University in economics in 2006. Christopher is a holder of Chartered Financial Analyst designation. Welcome, Christopher.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here, Manoj.
Awesome. So we met, as we were discussing earlier, we met in June at American Society for AI, and we had some interesting conversations since then. But before we dive in, you've had a very impactful career. So I would love to learn a little bit about your journey. How did you get into this world of finance? How did you develop your skills to reach the level of success that you are at today? uh, help us understand you and walk us down the memory lane.
Yeah, I remember graduating from Colgate University in 2006, which immediately I step back and say, oh my gosh, that's almost 20 years now as we sit in 2024 with the year half gone. And I remember the interview process, and at that time, sort of pre-global financial crisis, the sort of pinnacle as an economics major that I was trying to work at an investment bank of various types, and all the various big names would come and visit, and you would see the graduates, and you would hear how they majored in Spanish. They majored in all sorts of things that seemed to have nothing to do with investment banking, which was all the rage at that point in time. And I remember getting the only offer that I got, which was at the firm, as you mentioned, Lord Abbett. And I didn't really know much about the industry. I didn't really know what I was walking into. The job was called internal wholesaler. It morphed into something that they called a regional consultant. But some of us in the industry that might be listening might be familiar with the idea of selling financial products over the phone to people in various regions of the US. And I was selling into Nebraska and Iowa. And one of the coolest things that I got to do was speak to people who encouraged me to go to the Warren Buffett shareholder meeting. So I can actually say that I went and saw live Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett speak. And I probably would not have gotten to do that had I not been covering people in
Mhm.
that region. The most valuable thing that happened, I think, in that role was I was speaking to financial advisors who didn't have a direct financial background. And what I mean by that is if I'm talking about currency, or I'm talking about more complicated investment strategies, which Lord Abbett may have had on the menu at that time, I had to not only know the jargon and how I would explain it to a sophisticated financial investor, but I also had to be able to know the meaning behind all these different terminologies, such that if I was speaking to someone without that same level of background and the
Mhm.
MBA and all the rest, you make it real to them. You don't really know something, in my opinion, unless you can really explain it and make it meaningful to anyone, and that was to me the most valuable thing that came from that initial job.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think as you said, like these are very complicated things to explain, but I think this applies to any field, any industry, where if you're able to communicate with people about complex topics and make it easy to understand, that's, I think, the key to success. Now, you went from working in a regional office here, and then doing research at the European level, and then now you are doing research at the global level. Like, so you have obviously experience and vantage point of view from various angles, various sort of geographies. How has your worldview changed as you went from like a regional to European and now global?
I think when I joined WisdomTree, I'm not sure that the passport was even fully up to date because I was certainly not an international traveler of any sort. But what ultimately happened, the first sort of international trips that I did were not even to Europe. I went to Mexico City. I went to Bogota, Colombia, Medellin, Colombia, the same city, the Medellin cartel, that if people watch various Netflix series, it's a beautiful city today, very, very safe. But, you go back in time a certain amount and it was less so. Lima, Peru, Santiago, Chile. And so speaking to investors of all shapes and sizes in some of these other markets, it was something I never thought that I would do. I never thought I would get those stamps in the old passport. And then what ended up happening in 2018 was WisdomTree embarked on an acquisition which expanded their European footprint. I'd been in the chair in the U.S. for about 7 years, and the idea was, let's bring the successful elements of the WisdomTree research culture and team to the European business and make the imprint and the stamp fully global. So I signed up with the idea of spending 5 years in London, which for those of us thinking, those first 2 years, 2018 and 19, amazing. You're seeing parts of Europe you wouldn't have seen. The wife is happy. I have 2 dogs. The dogs are happy with the dog scene in London. Everything's great. And then we know what happened in 2020, the pandemic. So the next 2 years, now I'm not saying those years would have been better in New Jersey where I had moved from, but you deal with the pandemic wherever you have to deal with it. And then 2022, we were able to travel a bit and see a bit more. And you're meeting with different types of investors all the time, recognizing there are similarities and there are differences. A big difference that you see in today's world, which still persists and persisted in various ways during that period of time, was ESG, environmental, social governance.
Mhm.
In the US, there are certain views on that topic. In Europe, there are different views on that topic. I don't think there's a quote unquote right or wrong. Every investor needs to analyze what it means to them. But our industry, meaning financial services, is very interesting when certain regulatory elements or government elements try to come up with standardized ways of thinking about environmental, social governance, climate change, all these very, very complex topics, which again, it's an individual view, and not every solution is right to every investor. It's very tough to come up with blanket regulations that apply to, say, all the countries of the European Union, or now that the UK is sort of its own element, the US. Everyone's going to have very different views on these things, and so it keeps all of us employed because we have
Mhm.
to continue to understand and be able to break down these detailed topics to almost any type of investor worldwide.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Like, it sounds like your travels to South America, your travels to Europe. It's more understanding how humans think, and how we are similar and different, rather than more sort of esoteric things like financial strategies and things of that nature. Will that be correct?
Financial strategies, I think, are kind of the easy part of
Yeah, yeah.
this type of industry and this type of job. It's more, and it's like, a way that I ended up thinking of it is when you see how a meeting is structured. And if you think of various European countries, you could take Italy, you could take Sweden, you could take Germany, you could take the UK, and the way a meeting will unfold. And what I mean by a meeting is you show up to the location, usually the client's office. You sit in the chair. Sometimes the chair is around a big table and every seat is full. And you recognize the main thing you have to do is convey gravitas. You have to convey a command of the subject matter. Sometimes there are many, many questions that are partly aiming to understand the topic better, partly potentially aiming to see if you get knocked off the task and get knocked off guard. And you have to basically prove whether it's a bit of yourself and a bit of your company's expertise in the topic to then lead to the next interaction. Because frequently, a lot of what we do is I am one link on a broader chain. That chain is a broader team of different actions. And if we do a good job across all those different actions, eventually we earn the right to work with the client on an investment. The only way WisdomTree makes any money is if clients are so convinced that they put some of their assets in a given WisdomTree investment strategy. And we have to earn that every single day. And every client is a bit different. So you have to figure out the steps on that journey. The research team of which I am a part is a big and an important phase, but it's not the only phase. There's a sales team, there's a marketing team, there are all these different elements. And if the different elements are not able to come together in a cohesive manner, there's no hope of being able to take
Mhm.
all the relevant clients down that journey.
Yeah, amazing. So it sounds like even with very large number, like hundreds of billions, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is like a team collaboration, understanding the humans behind, on the other side, meaning your clients. It sounds like a very human effort, which I think the entire financial industry is. I mean, it's all based on trust. It's all based on credibility, right?
I love the word trust because we saw a few years ago what happened, and this is really what breaks down in the sense that when Lehman, after I think 157 years, goes out of business. The real reason it goes out of business is all the various counterparties to which Lehman has set up all these deals. We refer to them as derivative contracts, but it's really two different parties have a certain set of obligations to one another. And the reason it all breaks down is there's suddenly a cohesive lack of trust in the a collective analysis of Lehman as an entity in terms of its ability to make good on those contracts. And once that trust is gone, what happens to Lehman? It ceases to exist. The
Hmm.
Lord
Hmm.
Abbett building in Jersey City, New Jersey, was right next door to one of Lehman's buildings, and it was you almost had a moment of silence the day that the construction company came by and they were actually chiseling the sign off of the building, and you had that dark sense of sort of watching a foreboding moment in financial history as that's happening. But whether
Hmm.
it's Silicon Valley Bank, whether it's Credit Suisse, all these firms that had been around a certain amount of time were trusted. In today's world, trust can be lost with the snap of the fingers. I love the Warren Buffett sort of maxim. It takes a lifetime to build that reputation. It takes probably less than 5 minutes to destroy it.
Yeah.
And it couldn't be more true in the financial services industry.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, as we are now getting into a new digital age of AI and social media and whatnot, uh, have you seen the impact of that? Like how has it make it easier? Has it made it? Did it make it easier to earn the trust or credibility, or did it make it more difficult to win the trust of the clients or your people? You being in research, I'm guessing this whole advent of social media and AI and technology also impacts you to a great deal.
I think the way that I see it is you have the ideas and then you have the dissemination of the ideas. And what's interesting in today's world is the dissemination. We at WisdomTree, we have a blog. So if you go to wisdomtree.com in your respective market, I know depending on the country, the websites can be a little bit different, but at the end of the day, if you go to the articles section, the blog section, you'll see some articles that I've written. You've seen some articles that other team members have written. And the nice thing that we can do as a firm is for clients that have quote unquote signed up in the appropriate manner and shared their email address, for example, they could maybe get notifications about different articles on different topics. And in the past, everybody got the same email. In today's world, you're moving closer and closer to a world in which everybody gets specific notifications based on their preferences, based on what they viewed in the past, based on a prediction occurring somewhere that might lead them into that next step on the client journey. But the core of the matter here, the foundation, I like thinking of a clip that I saw in the Last Dance on Netflix about the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan, where he was talking about his very lucrative advertising career. If you don't have the capability to play basketball at his level, the lucrative advertising career goes out the window. It doesn't. If he's scoring 2 points a night, I think he said it doesn't really matter what he's saying about the shoes or about any other product. But if he's putting the strong foundation in place, and in our world, that strong foundation needs to be based on the ideas. If we're putting the strong investment ideas to the table, then all these interesting ways of disseminating them can be 10 times more impactful. If we're not getting quality ideas to the table, it almost works against you because now you're disseminating bad ideas and people can allow that to inform their view of your reputation because now those bad ideas are reaching 10 times as many people. They're hitting the unsubscribe button and going on their way. So the importance of the foundation is probably more than it has ever been before.
Yeah. So it again ties back to your previous our previous conversation, like just the sheer fact of we understanding humans, understanding what they want, understanding how the world works is much more important than any technology. Which leads me to the next question. Like you are fully embracing AI. Like we met in an AI conference, and a lot of I mean, obviously there's a lot of fear about AI. There's a lot of skepticism about AI, and the biggest one here is, oh, AI is here to take away our jobs. So how are you seeing this sort of manifesting itself in the financial industry, like, and how you are seeing that this technology is going to help you rather than replace you in what you are doing?
I think there are a lot of examples throughout history. We work at WisdomTree with Professor Jeremy Siegel, author of Stocks for the Long Run and the Future for Investors, and I heard him relay sort of the anecdote about bank tellers, where there was a time, it's hard to think of it, before online banking and before the automated teller machines, the ATMs, and we see the proliferation of the ATM. And among the initial predictions, and it was a fairly good career, good job, very stable that you could get in the United States at a certain point, maybe 1960s going into 1970s, you're working as a bank teller. And now you've got this machine that allows people to put money in and take money out without human interaction. You're assuming, your initial assumption is your job is going out the window. But in reality, what happens is you actually need more bank tellers, probably not immediately, but over the ensuing years, what people realized is their relationship with the bank was broadening and changing. And instead of thinking of the bank as I have to physically hand someone my paycheck, now you're doing all sorts of other more value added services. The reason that, I mean, we're about to go into earnings season of the banks. The reason that banks have the earnings that they do is because people think of banks now as more than just you put the paycheck in and nothing else can ever happen. And so the greater degree of value added services. Now, the bank tellers needed to evolve their thinking, they needed to increase their skills to be able to talk more intelligently, whether it's about interest rates or mortgages or lending or starting small businesses and advising. So it wasn't as though the bank tellers could just sit there, they change nothing, and expect to continue to have a job. And that's probably what we're going to face today in artificial intelligence, in the sense that people who just have that open mind and recognize the way in which they perform their role could look a little bit different, maybe a lot different, depending on what they do. But if they just keep learning and keep embracing the tools as they become available, it's possible that they could be a lot more productive years into the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. So, have you started noticing adoption of AI, maybe in the financial industry or the clients you work with? What is your view in terms of the actual adoption of these technologies? And maybe a follow up will be the actual sort of result or a positive impact of adopting these technologies.
The tricky thing about the financial services industry is you don't feel like things generally happen extremely quickly in some cases. It feels like obviously the market can move, meaning the price of the different assets that we see, or the indices like the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq 100. These things are obviously changing some days more quickly than others. But when you think about certain key issues, client data is a very, very highly regulated area of the financial services business. And if you think of what is generally the fuel for artificial intelligence, it is client data. So if you're running client data through such a system, I'm not saying it's impossible. It's just you have a certain level of propriety and security and other boxes that need to be ticked in order to do it properly. So it's not necessarily the case that even if people have the wherewithal, the knowledge, the know-how, they have to just ensure that from a regulatory perspective in the jurisdiction they're operating in, they can run the data through these systems properly. Then what you do see a lot of, and probably the best use case so far, is in our industry. We have a lot of meetings, and I'm not sure if we have more meetings than other industries. I don't have a lot of experience in other industries, but what you're seeing a lot of in terms of how AI is used boots on the ground these days, you're getting a lot of summations. So
Mm-hmm.
you're getting a lot of, whether you hear an advisor was maybe talking to a client and the system can summarize what was discussed and maybe suggest, not automatically do the follow-up, but maybe suggest further things. It's similar at WisdomTree when we have an internal meeting, whether on Teams or Zoom or some of these different platforms, summarizing the meeting, thinking of those next steps. And so you're never going to now have that excuse of either I missed the meeting and I don't know what was discussed, or I don't remember being at the meeting and what we talked about, because now these systems are quote unquote with perfect recall telling you exactly what happened. So you're getting a lot of summations. Sometimes those summations as well could, in the research area, deal with company earnings reports and changing fundamentals on different investments. And so being able to help you digest, it doesn't yet put the information directly into your mind, but it does help you digest greater and greater swaths of information. And so that's helpful. What it doesn't quite do yet, at least that we've seen, is perfectly manage a portfolio and beat the market. I know
Mm-hmm.
some people hypothesize and articles get written about, can artificial intelligence systems beat the market. There's a very interesting book that I would definitely have people take a look at. It's called The Man Who Solved the Market. It's about this guy, James Simons. He's a professor at Stony Brook, and he founded Renaissance Technologies. If people Google either Renaissance Technologies or the Medallion Fund, they went on an odyssey. If you read this book, you'll learn more about it, where what they were doing for years was curating and collecting data on asset prices at all these different frequencies. And it was, futures commodity prices, futures fixed income prices, equities, all these different things. And they took so much time, and this was happening in the 70s and the 80s. They took so much time trying to get the data perfect, far more time than we tend to think today. In today's world, we want to just run the AI system, have it start selecting stocks. But they took more than a decade, it seemed, from what was reported in the book, getting the data ready to try to gain valuable insights and start using machine learning and various pattern recognition techniques and other things that could then allow a system to at least have a chance at beating the market. And anyone can Google the medallion results. The results are absolutely insane, to the degree that if you hear of a hedge fund that doesn't actually need outside clients, the returns are so high, you don't even need outside clients. You just manage the money of the people who work there, and that's more than enough and will be more than enough basically forever. It almost staggers the comprehension, because our industry, financial services, is usually based on taking in as much money as possible. So when you find a firm that won't even accept outside money, what they're doing is working under the hood.
Yeah, amazing. What is your personal view? Do you think um, AI there could be a AI system that can consistently beat the market, or like do you think that's possible?
What you learn is everything's possible.
Hmm.
Now, when people figure it out, if they're smart, it's similar to, if anyone's watched the movie The Imitation Game, when the character portrayed Alan Turing, and they basically figure out the German Enigma code, but they don't want to publicize it. So if you really have something that can beat the market, the smartest thing you can do is tell no one and just let
Mm.
the system continue to operate. And that's very similar to what the Medallion Fund and Renaissance Technologies ultimately ended up doing. And so at the end of the day, it may be the case that some funds and hedge funds out there do have systems that are starting a track record that does look promising. Maybe we hear about them, maybe we don't. Some of these private funds, they don't necessarily always need to report with full clarity everything that they're doing, or at least in a timely
Mhm.
manner. And so I definitely think a lot more is possible than what we tend to see in the perfectly transparent world of ETFs, where you do see the holdings every single day. We haven't necessarily seen something that can sort of prove its ability, because obviously in the last couple of years, all you had to do was own 6 or 7 of the biggest companies in the world, and your result looks amazing. And so
Mhm.
everyone knows that. But to be able to navigate the turns and the cycles, and recognize sometimes its value and sometimes its growth, and move to different sectors, that's where you really prove a capability. Usually in our world, we want to see 10 years of a strong history, ups and downs, and being able to really navigate.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing, fascinating stuff. Like I dove into this world of financial markets, and I started taking interest in actual building systems and algorithms for trading, and I learned quite a bit, and it worked fairly well. So I totally find it fascinating myself on uh, how amazingly complex this world is, and um, at some level also how simple it is, because at the end of the day it's a lot of mathematics involved, basically, in determining the price of any security commodity, right? Now, before we move on, like you've done so much work globally. What are some of the lessons you have learned? Maybe you made some mistakes, or I never call them mistakes, but some lessons that showed up in the disguise of a challenge or a setback. So can you share with us anything that you learned and still apply it today in your professional and personal life?
It was amazing in the sense that the wheels of the plane hit the ground. I think it was April 4th of 2018. And anytime you're starting a new job, now it was within the same company, but in a way it was a new job in a new country with new
Mhm.
people. And until you do one of those kind of things, you never experience sort of what's very common in the sense that you want to come in and you want to showcase that you know stuff. As a human, it's a very human desire to basically say, okay, there's 50 new people I don't really know that well, and I've been working at WisdomTree 7 years, and this is how we at WisdomTree do this or we do that on a given time scale based on the success we've seen in the U.S. market. And as you go through that process, what you could easily, and I'm sure I easily failed to do in those early days, was recognize you also have to understand that the people that you're starting to talk to and starting to build a relationship with, they've been successful doing things in their ways. In their different markets. And what you've done in the US, some of it might apply, but some of it may not apply. And figuring out that mix is done probably more with listening than with speaking or trying to prove how smart you are. And I remember we brought some of our research on certain equity strategies. And for about a year, we were not really able to make any progress with those strategies, meaning we would have meetings, but those meetings would not, say, enhance the client journey that we were referring to earlier. And then we hired, and one of the things we did was we started, and the team was 5 people, including me. And currently today, the team is 11 or 12 people. And so as you went through the years, we were adding strategically more people. And I remember hiring someone, and I saw the research that they put together, same topic, and I immediately knew, oh, wow, this is better than anything I did. So part of what you do is you surround yourself with people who know more, even though you're saying, oh my gosh, I worked 7 years on this topic, I feel like I should know something. But you bring even stronger people to bear, and you see the results that they're able to get, and you recognize we're stronger if we're all functioning and learning from each other than we are if you hang on too long to that mindset of, but I was working for 7 years and I know this and we do
Yeah,
it
yeah,
this way. And until you go through something like that, it's just words. So some
yeah,
of you
yeah.
might be listening and saying, oh, that's just words, that would never happen to me. Trust me, it'll happen in its own way, and you'll remember, and it'll trigger a memory, and you'll say, oh, that's what he was talking about when you go through it that first time.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it sums it up. We started our conversation with this whole industry. In fact, every industry is all about understanding humans, and I think we closed the loop on that with that statement that it's still a lot about understanding humans, not only others but also ourselves, in terms of what our shortcomings are, and how our experiences are more localized in some ways, and we need to gain more insights when we are in a new environment. Well, thank you
It's
so much.
absolutely the case.
Yeah,
Absolutely the case.
well, thank you so much, Chris, for being with us and sharing your wisdom and experience. Now, before I let you go, can you tell us, if people want to get in touch with you, they want to work with you, what is the best way to get in touch with you?
What I tend to do is, if I think I have a good idea, and I'm sure they're not all good, but if I initially think I have a good idea, I work within the team, and what we'll do is we'll publish an article on the WisdomTree websites, and depending what country you're in, it'll guide you to the appropriate website. But you'll see all of the ideas that we're currently running with. I'll probably write something on the order of 70 or 80 of these articles this year. And so, we spend a lot of time talking about thematic equities. We spend a lot of time talking about certain factors like quality or value. And what we're trying to do, again, all the time is just recognize that everyone out there is trying to figure out what's happening in the market. We want to put our best foot forward, our best ideas to the table. And like we talked about today, they get distributed on all these different platforms. But the core is, we call it the WisdomTree blog, and it's right there on the WisdomTree website, available for all to see.
Awesome, awesome. We'll put those links in the show notes so that people can access it easily.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.